What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this week I want to talk about the Nemesis system in this Batman game, kind of go over the basics of it, talk about how I think it's going to work, and overall have a discussion on that. Now, actually, on my second channel a few days ago, actually I believe it was like Friday or Thursday even, there was that leak. There was that leak from that like KC Walsh guy. I had his Twitter up, and we went over some of the things that he had discussed. Again, that was Thursday. That was a while ago. The Nemesis system was the big thing with that, right? That there's going to be a Nemesis system like in the Middle-earth games, right? So Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, and it's going to be in this game. Now, to give a little context, I actually had called this. I had predicted last July, last August, remember when I had first started really making content, like, every couple days on Batman. One of the first videos I ever made was that the game needs, I think that was actually the name of it, the game needs the Nemesis system. And I had people back then say, the number one thing people said was, what's the Nemesis system? So I thought, okay, you know what? With this guy now saying, hey, and for those that don't know, right, he had a tweet that came up and he said, okay, I talked to somebody, or he was talking to somebody who had worked on the game when it was first starting up, and one of the main features of the game was going to be a Nemesis system. It would include the GCPD, so actually the police of Gotham would be in, it would actually be part of this system. So I figure a lot of people here right now are new, right? They found me over the last 6 to 8 months. They probably didn't see that first video. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what for anybody that maybe is a little unaware, what the Nemesis system is, and then also how would it maybe work, what kind of changes would I want in Batman. So the first thing is the Nemesis system, to kind of put it maybe in the easiest way possible for those that didn't play Middle-earth. It is a literal system where the AI, the enemies, literally can remember you. Okay, they can move up in ranks. They can actually be eliminated. So in in the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War game, they are literally the enemies, and they rise up. They look different. They get different armors, and they remember you. They tell stories of you. If they eliminate you, let's say, in terms of like a PG kind of term, if they eliminate you, obviously you respawn, right? But because they're the ones who did that to you, they rise up, okay? And so maybe you go through and there's like a little clan, and one of them is the leader, and they have different levels, they have different strengths, they have different weaknesses. The main guy, okay, the main enemy. So we can look at it from Batman's point of view of, go in any way you want. Maybe there'll be, and we'll talk about this again, kind of my predictions for it, maybe there'll be factions, and we've talked about that, right? Give different parts of the map, however big you're gonna have the map, have different sections on it, and have them each be run by a different group. They kind of did that with Arkham City, right? But it wasn't really fleshed out. It was solid. I mean, it's cool, but it wasn't really like, okay, you go in this area and it's all just one person. I mean, that was the goal of it, right? But did they really achieve that? So you would have, okay, Two-Face. Two-Face is the leader, but then he has like goons or grunts or whatever you want to call underneath him, and they have personality. They have a name. They have a story. They'll remember Batman, and if you take them out, if you put them in jail, but say they escape jail, they may rise through the ranks. Or again, so when you're in a fist fight and you get beat up and you technically like die, right? And then you respawn. If an enemy does that to you, even if it's not like the main enemy of like that clan, that person will actually rise up. Maybe that person was literally a nobody. They're not on like the leaderboard. They're not on the ranking, whatever you want to call it. They're just literally a grunt. And so you're fighting, you're going back and forth, and you forget to press triangle, you forget to press Y, you forget to counter, and he punches you in the face, and then you're just out for the count. And then you have the screen where the villain walks up and says their little line to you, right? You'll respawn, but that grunt, that thug, that nobody, you didn't know who that was, oh my God, all of a sudden, now he's risen in the ranks. Now all of a sudden, he has like a little, battalion of thugs underneath him, okay? So that's the Nemesis system. That's what it is, and obviously they used it for their kind of enemy types, and I think that and honestly, and that's why I said this in that August video, that works insanely well. That gives not only the main villain, because we know in the Batman games and Arkham Knight, especially when they try to, pretty heavily, right? They try to give a lot of villains a spotlight in like that side mission, the not the main villains, but in that wheel, right? So they tried that. Well, now imagine that, but you have actual enemies, and when they're fighting you, you know who they are. You recognize them. You say, oh my God, because maybe they have like a different kind of, armor type, like they're wearing like a bulletproof vest or something, like a certain one, or like a Joker's men, right? Like the clown, and maybe one of them has like a really, really weird face design, so you do remember him. You'll remember what they look like, and then maybe they do beat you, or maybe they survive. And often, and another thing of the Nemesis system is if they like escape, sometimes they'll escape, because again, they have strengths and weaknesses, and when they kind of feel like the fight is is not going in their favor, they'll run. And if you let them run, they may actually become more powerful because they can say, oh, I fought him and I escaped. I actually made it out. He didn't take me out. You know what I mean? So that is a really, again, for what it did in the Middle-earth game. So again, for those of you guys that have played that game, or those, those two games, which I do want a third, by the way, you guys know the Nemesis system is. But imagine that. That's what kind of the point of this video is just imagine how amazing that would be in this game. Now, it's not, the be-all, end-all, right? But I think in terms of a game where you're Batman, right? And whatever, I've always said this, the villains in Batman really can carry it, okay? Your villain choice, and it's why you do want to have a blend of the old, some villains that we're all very, aware of and we've seen before. Obviously, different takes on them, but we've seen them before. Then you want to have villains that we've never seen before, right? Well, actually, you kind of increase that because obviously there's a lot of different kinds of villains from the comics and all that stuff, and I know a lot of you guys always ask me, right, like what kind of villains, who do you want to see in this game? Well, firstly, I don't know that many villains in the Batman world, but secondly, my answer is kind of always just give me whoever you want, because as we've seen in these 4 Arkham games, they've done an amazing job. A lot of villains, now, okay, not always, right? They've done an amazing job with some, they've done less than an amazing job with others, but it's their chance of giving us these characters that maybe someone like me, I've never heard of them before, I've never seen them before, or then maybe other people, hey, we know who they are, but oh man, you changed how they look, and you changed kind of just their scope in general. I mean, they can do some really amazing things. So now take that and use that on the AI, just the AI that throughout the entire game you're battling. Obviously, we know like with the Court of Owls, right, that they have their minions that are very, very talented, right? So imagine them and imagine them rising up the ranks. Now, will they ever become like a member of the Court of Owls? Maybe not, but maybe they could. You know what I mean? Well, what's going to be interesting is with the Middle-earth games, the highest level of the enemy, right? They could be taken out, and you'll have other enemies take their place. The question with Batman, this is a question to you guys. I know, obviously, you guys have a lot of really good ideas, too. The thing with me, when I think about it, is how exactly would it work, okay? How would they implement it into Batman? So, obviously, okay, the thugs, your normal, like, street gang people, they would basically be the men that are making up this Nemesis. And I don't think they'll call it that, but they would make up the Nemesis system, okay? They would rise through the ranks, they would drop if you arrest them, and maybe they never break. Now, breaking out is just kind of idea I had, because I was thinking, okay, you can't obviously, you can't eliminate them for good, right? Because Batman doesn't do that. So is there a possibility of them ever escaping? Maybe there's a randomized escape system that they put in the game where sometimes if you lock them up in Blackgate or you lock them up in Arkham, wherever you want to choose, maybe they can break out. And then if they break out, maybe they don't, though. Maybe they stay in there. Maybe there's a way of making sure that they stay in there, and then if they do break out, then they can rise to the ranks again. But the question is, are the highest members the actual main side villains? That's my main thing, because you could really kind of merge the Nemesis system, again, with Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, with what they had in Arkham Knight. So you had the mission wheel, okay? You had all of these different villains, and you really only did, so say like Two-Face, again, right? He was robbing banks, so you had to go, what was it, like 3-4 banks, you went around the city, and you'd have to stop some of his men, and then eventually you took out him, okay? So for this kind of thing, is Two-Face ahead of like a faction of people, and maybe it's like spread out where there's literally like this group of people that again can rise through the ranks, drop, new people that were never in there can actually appear, right? But the top of that leaderboard, or whatever you want to call it, is Two-Face. And then if you take Two-Face out, does somebody take his place? You know what I mean? Or can you actually take Two-Face out? Or do you have to take him out just by eliminating him as a character in general? You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, because with the Middle-earth games, they were still kind of randomized, just, orcs or whatever. They were just randomized enemies. They weren't people that were into the story, right? They didn't actually have story characters at the top. What'll be interesting for Batman is, okay, we know that they want, I mean, look at all the leaks that always come out. The way you can tell, if a leak is true or false sometimes is they'll just throw in a couple of side villains we've never heard before, right? So that's one of their ways. Well, imagine that, okay, there's 10 side villains. Are they all the leaders of their groups, but they're all at the top of this Nemesis system? They could be. That could be how it works. And then again, when you do the side missions, maybe you can take them out, and then once they're taken out, maybe it's just normal thugs can take their place. Now again, it'll eventually get repetitive, right? You'll start to hear the same stuff, or it'll start to do that. But really, again, in a scope of what could the Nemesis system do for this game, it can make it amazing. I'm a big fan of villains, okay? Just in movies and games in general, villains are very, very important. How, like, is a villain just a villain? Like, are they bad just because they're bad, right? They want, like, world domination. You know, in the early, like, 2000s, late 90s, you were a villain because you wanted to take over the, the world, or you wanted to eliminate everybody, whatever your reasoning. That's why you're a villain. What we've entered now, love or hate the movies or games we've gotten now, one of the best parts, I think, of the newer things is the villains are just so small tweaks of heroes. They're your protagonists, but they have just a very slight angle on it where they say, you know what, I see the world in just a slightly different way, or I see it this way, and this is why I am doing what I'm doing. Thanos, even like in Avengers Infinity War, I understood him. Now, I think they actually ruined him a little bit in Endgame, but his reasoning in Infinity War, you understand. Now, again, he's evil, right? He's the antagonist, but you understand why he's doing those things. So why am I saying all this? Well, again, you can have that with these side villains, but to give the thugs a little bit more personality, right? And Batman has always actually, or these Arkham games, I should say, they've always done a reasonably good job of doing that, right? When you'll hear radio conversations on, right? You'll be able to hear these guys talking back and forth. Now, again, once you take them out, once you do your stealth, your stealth takedown or whatever, they're completely gone. You forget about them. They never happen. That's why, again, this Nemesis system, you hear them talking. You can use maybe your detective mode, right? We talked about in the last video that I want a change to detective mode. Well, how cool would it be, again, if you're in an area and you can use detective mode and you can figure out, oh, here's all these enemies, and oh my god, there's a guy that I tried to take out and he escaped. I couldn't get him. I couldn't bring him to the GCPD, and my god, look, he's risen up the ranks, right? You can use that. You can use detective mode with this new system, and it gives them some personality. They can maybe talk about their bosses, so now you can add the side villains in even more, right? Because maybe they're talking about Joker, maybe they're talking about Two-Face or Penguin, or whoever you want them to be talking about. And again, it gives everybody a bit more personality, and it does make the game, I think, last a little bit longer. When you're done with the Arkham games, there's the same factions of people, they say the same things, they do the same thing, they're pretty much the same. With the Nemesis system, I think there's a lot more, because they can rise up the ranks, they can drop, they can be new people in general. Obviously, it depends on how sophisticated Warner Bros. Montreal makes it, but again, this is something that I've said for the longest time, again, back last August, one should be in this game, but not just in this game, put in Rocksteady's game. That's the Suicide Squad game that Rocksteady's making. It better be in there. I really think it's an amazing system that a lot more studios should have, and the lucky thing for, us fans of Batman is, well, Warner Bros. Works together, right? These studios talk to each other, and you already know that Rocksteady and Warner Bros. Montreal have talked, and they are talking because they're making games in the same universe, so they have to obviously collaborate. It has to make sense, right? They have to maybe use same character models, same actors, same actresses in their voice roles, all this different kind of stuff. Well, why not bring in Monolith, right? Monolith was the studio, and even Monolith, the person who created or had the fighting system in those Middle-earth games, they made the Batman one. So Warner Bros. Has these people that just kind of jump studios, and they help each other out. So I think it makes a world of sense. I think I've always loved, that was the main draw, I think, of Shadow of Mordor back in the day. I think that was the main draw of that game. I loved the Nemesis system, and then they did even better with Shadow of War, and obviously it's something that I really, really want in this game, in these Batman games. I think it can work, especially with superhero games. Superhero, supervillain games, a Spider-Man game, right? We talked about that. It could really work. This system could really work in any of these games. I think it's honestly very, very necessary. So, guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think about the Nemesis system? What are some ideas that you have? Again, you guys oftentimes come up with things that I never could think of. So let me know how you think this game could use the system. Do you think it'll be part of it? Honestly, I will be majorly disappointed if this is not part of the game. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed and have the bell icon turned on. And I do a new video, obviously, on Batman every couple days. Going to be keeping it going. Obviously, August 22nd is right around the corner. We're going to have some amazing, amazing things as we go through August as well. Let me know, as always, if there's more, specific kinds of videos you guys want me to make on Batman. I'll definitely make those as well, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you all on the next video.